Question-driven leadership, Charles. There's a system in place that leaders can actually implement in their organizations, whereby they lead by asking their workers and their employees the right questions. But why don't we start off this episode by just defining what question-driven leadership actually is?
Yeah, question driven leadership is really about pulsing the organization for information as opposed to pumping information out into the organization, right? So a bad example is a leader or manager who goes out onto the floor and says, "We're doing this, right? This is getting done, right? We're almost done, right? We've met this quota, right?" That's not question driven leadership, right? That's compliance driven leadership. That's, yeah, tell the boss exactly what he wants to hear. He's giving us the correct answer. The correct answer is yes. And if we say yes and we're not actually there, then we'll just kind of hustle in the background and make it so. Question driven leadership is really a derivative of servant driven leadership, which is, what do you need from me? What is the truth of where we are right now and what we're doing? And how can I help you? Are there any obstacles that you're aware of? Any choke points that I need to be aware of that I can help eliminate, remove to make us all successful? A question-driven leader doesn't know the answer to those questions and isn't afraid of that, and asks the team what they need. And again, asks the truth of, where are we really?
How can asking the right question change the overall dynamic in a room?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, imagine, right? I mean, I know that question is a little bit obvious, but in a room where your opinion is not valued or even solicited, you know the mood in that room. You could see it as soon as you walk in. Everybody just sits down and shuts up, and they're just waiting for the meeting to be over. This is a waste of my time. I have no value to add. They're just going to tell me the right answer anyway. Why am I even here? What's the point? This could have been an email, right?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, um, is asking questions better than just straight up handing out orders to people?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, one of the drivers in my industry of a healthy culture is everyone in the organization demonstrates a healthy questioning attitude. Okay. So it's part of the cultural edict, and it's got question in it, which means we value this so much that we're making it a part of our culture. And we're saying from the first day you walk through the door that not only is it okay for you to ask questions, but we expect you to ask questions. Servant driven leader understands that everyone on their team are their eyes and ears everywhere. And every set of those eyes and every set of those ears has different filters. They see different colors, they hear different frequencies. So it really is the beauty of the diversity of a team that someone catches something that nobody else on the team caught. And a lot of that has to do with perspective. We notice these things every day, every single one of us. But if we don't feel free and safe to speak up, we just let it go by and we assume that everybody else saw it as well.
Can you give an example of a powerful question that someone in a leadership position can ask instead of just handing out orders to people? Like if you want or if you're expecting something from someone in your team, what is a good question that can start making that person take action around whatever it is that you want them to do?
Yeah, one of my favorites, and it's almost a standing joke, is, what am I missing? And now the way that this kind of gets misused is you throw that out into the room. What am I missing? We talked, I think, previously once about the positional authority of a leader. If I'm sitting at the head of the table and I say, what am I missing? There's an unspoken rule that the only two people that are allowed to comment on my question of what am I, the leader, missing is my number one and my number two, right? So that's a misuse of that question. You ask the same question, though, specifically, Stephanie, what am I missing? Jeff, what am I missing? Now you're having a one-on-one conversation with that person, and you are specifically asking that person's perspective and that person's opinion. That is very, very different than floating out a general question that says, go ahead, challenge me. I'm that that's a challenge. That's no, I'm not going to tell the boss anything. And this, unfortunately, is a pretty there's a pretty good case study of this in the Challenger explosion. Right, they had a room full of people, and there was one person saying, "Hey, we're missing something. We're missing something," and they were dismissed. But it's because those leaders in that particular room didn't really want to know anything specific. But so specificity and distinction are absolutely king. And be that, ask that specific person. Okay, you're the person who's going to be here doing this thing, right? Yes. What have we not talked about? What have I not asked you about your role in this evolution that I need to know?
Yeah, my follow up question to that is how do you ask the right questions without micromanaging? Or how do you challenge someone without actually micromanaging them?
Yeah, in my mind, I'm having a pre-job brief, right? We're all ready as a team to go out and do something, whether it's a regular day of production or some special evolution. And during that pre-job brief, the way to ensure that everyone understands their role and really isn't just nodding along like, let's hurry up and get this over with. I've done this a thousand times before. The way you do that is in a very respectful and open way. Okay, we're going to go around the room, and I want each of you to just briefly describe how you understand your roles and responsibilities today, what your risks are today. Okay, well, I'm going to be here at this, running this machine, and I know that if anything goes wrong, that I have less than 3 minutes to report that because of the upstream blah 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 or the downstream such and such, right? Okay, it actually sounded like a pretty brief overview, but that was actually really specific. You understand the risks. You understand that your window for correcting any problem is less than 3 minutes before we have to stop the line or whatever the case may be, right? So having those types of conversations are very, very powerful. It gives that person an opportunity to have a voice and describe things the way that they heard it. This is an important part of leadership. This isn't dictation. Do this, do this, do this, do this. Everybody got it? Yes. Okay, good. Well, hang on. How many times have you told someone, a friend, a family member, a child, hey, go do this, and they do something completely different? And you're like, how did you get that wrong? Well, you said this. No, I said this. Oh, well, I thought you meant this. Interpretation is huge. There's a lot that goes on between when a word is spoken and when an action is taken. A lot of things happen in between those two. So having that three-way communication and that repeat back, the way for you as a leader to kind of double check, did you hear what I said? And did you get the meaning of what I said?
So, what would you say is the difference between asking questions to truly communicate with employees versus asking questions to just manipulate them uh, to try to get them to deliver that preferred outcome that you want? I'm not sure if that
Yeah,
question makes sense.
it makes perfect sense because the difference is ego. The difference is ego. Either you want to be proved right and you want to show everyone how smart you are and that you thought of everything right. I thought of everything right. I thought of everything right. Wow, yeah, you're so smart. Versus, no, seriously, what did I forget? I'm only one person. I haven't done that job in 8 years. I might be in charge of the department now, but I haven't done that job in a while. And I remember it this way, but excuse me, it's been a while. What am I missing? What am I forgetting? Well, what you didn't know is we moved that machine over here. And actually, now there's a ton of glare and you can't really see the touchpad very well. And on a couple of occasions, I've hit 4 instead of 5 and caused problems, right? Like just weird, crazy little nuances like that. And if you have ego and you're just trying to get agreement with everyone because you know everything there is to know, you're setting yourself up for failure. And your team and you're limiting your success, your personal professional success and the team success, because they have information that you never asked for. Well, you didn't ask me. Okay, we'll see. It's good, If he had asked me, I would have told him that one of those tires was low. We're not going to make it. Right? Like, seriously. But if you've created a culture where people don't think they can say, hey, is there any way we could get like an extra 5 minutes because I noticed one of those tires was low? I really think we ought to press that up and then check the other three while we're at it. If you don't have a culture like that, they're not going to say it. They're either going to let it go and hope nothing happens, or they're going to try and sneak it in, and that, it's a domino effect.
Staying around this topic of ego, why do you think, Charles, that as a leader it's so important to give people credit for what they've done
Mm.
right?
Yeah, that this is such a big issue for me because it really speaks to what is your value as a leader? What is your job as a leader? And your job as a leader isn't to meet quotas, right? That's a manager's job. Your job as a leader is to create other leaders, to create a culture, to make sure that people are doing the right things, not doing things right. Okay. So a leader isn't a leader if they're driven by ego. They're a manager because they're so worried about themselves. The one of the marks of success of a great leader is a great team, not just a great outcome, and not just what we did, but how we did it. And that again is a subtle little nuance between managers and leaders. Managers, what did we do? 100 cases. Perfect. We met our quota. Now look at the team, right? Half of them are ready to quit. Three of them are hurt. Like, holy cow, we got it done. This is at what cost? Leaders, on the other hand, yeah, we got 100 and look, we have ideas on the whiteboard right now of how we could do 110 next time. We have people who are stepping up and helping each other. We have people who actually are smiling and having a good time and don't dread walking through this door every morning. The
There's
leader
a
really needs to focus on how things get done, not just what gets done.
there's a question that I should have probably asked you 4 or 5 episodes ago, which is, do leaders need managers in their teams?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially the more technical things are. Again, leaders can't be everywhere at once. So I think the difference is it's not that, management and leadership is so completely different and they're diametrically opposed. And, it's not that. Management is a form of leadership development. But like we did talk about this once before, that a manager's job is to absolutely 100% make sure that things are getting done correctly. Are we meeting our permit requirements? Are we meeting the procedural requirements? Are we get right? Do things work? Are things clicking? Do we have all the stuff that we like? That's a very, very important role in an organization. The problem is far too many organizations give managers a whole lot of responsibility and not much authority. And so what ends up happening is they're extremely anxious and they're extremely stressed all the time because they, in that role, aren't given the opportunity to influence culture. Or they influence culture whether they intend to or not, but they do it through those metrics and not necessarily through culture. So management's a very important transition role from individual contributor to a leader, and not everybody makes the transition. Not everybody makes the transition into management, never mind from management into leadership. But what you should be learning in management is absolutely, it's very, very important that people in the organization understand the technical requirements of what we do and how we do it. It's a very important role. A leader's job, though, is to do the heartbeat to check, okay, are they managing in the way that I want this organization to function? Are they managing with positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement? Are they managing to grow people, or are they managing to control people? That's the leader's role, is to say, okay, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. I got to coach you. You're doing a great job. We're getting a lot of the quota done, but you got to think. You got to play the long game here. This isn't just about this week. This is about this year and the next 10 years, right? And so that's part of that development.
I really want to ask you, are there systems or potentially even habits that leaders can implement to try to spotlight others in their teams?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. And so this is a very complex conversation because first and foremost, you need to have enough emotional intelligence to understand that what motivates me isn't necessarily what motivates everyone else. So back to this conversation about, hey, what's the right question to ask? What's a powerful question? Distinction and specificity make powerful questions. Distinction and specificity also make very powerful reward systems. Because if you have an absolute superstar player who does not like the spotlight, bringing them up to the front of the cafeteria and putting them up on a stage and handing them a plaque and taking their picture and making a big, hoopla about what they did is not going to motivate that person. It's going to embarrass them, and they're not going to like that. It's not going to be as reinforcing as you think it is. The Performance Management Institute in Atlanta, which was founded by Aubrey Daniels, he wrote a really terrific book called Bringing Out the Best in People. And it really is about positive reinforcement and how to use that, and how positive reinforcement. Listen, I'm not just like all unicorns and rainbows and all this kind of stuff, but the data has proven without any question and beyond a shadow of a doubt that positive reinforcement far, far, far outperforms negative reinforcement. So the days of cracking the whip and do what I say or you're going to lose your job, threat, 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 those days are long gone. Even in an economy where, geez, we don't have enough people working, there's jobs everywhere, or more so, more so, because people really do, it does matter to people. Their work environment matters to them. And their work environment is made up of that culture, which is, again, are we a positive reinforcing culture or are we a negative reinforcing culture?
Can you think of a moment in your career, Charles, where, uh, a leader that you were working with asked you the right question, and at the end of the week or at the end of the quarter or perhaps at the end of the year, you realized that because they asked that one question, or maybe it was a combination of really good questions, you truly saw a change. You were able to see a change in the way you performed, or you were able to see a consequence that ultimately happens because your leader was able to ask you the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I've talked about my professional background before, but it's very structured, very hierarchical, right? Most of us were ex-military, so we're kind of used to a chain of command anyway. And then the work itself lended itself to that type of thing, which is, the junior, the intermediate, the senior, the managers, the supervisors. Like it was just very structured in that way. And so on a crew of about 6 operators, even among the 6 of us, there was a pecking order. And so the senior operator on that shift was the one who just kind of took control of what we're going to do today, what we're going to do this week, and made assignments. And nobody ever really questioned it because it was how we were indoctrinated into the Navy, and it was just made sense. And so what happens is you get a culture even among those 6 people. You get a little microculture. And the crew that I was with, I was intermediate at the time. So maybe I was 4th. And it just so happened that, or maybe I was 3rd. So 1 and 2 were out. And so the operations manager said, hey, we're not going to reschedule this evolution, even though those 2 guys are out. How would you do it with just the 4 of you? Can you do it with just the 4 of you? Huh. Right. So he didn't give me an order. He didn't say, well, you're doing it anyway. Or he also didn't, which this didn't happen. So I'm speculating, but had he rescheduled it until they came back, that would have been a pretty strong signal to me that he didn't think I was ready to run an evolution by myself, or at least as the lead. Right. But he didn't. He said, so they're out. This is scheduled. How would you do it with 4 people? Can you do it with 4 people? That's a good question. That's a really good question. And I didn't
And you
answer
did?
immediately. I sat down and I looked at it and said, not only can we do it with 4 people, but I don't understand why you were using 6 people in the past. Right? This is not a 6-person evolution. How would you do it? Well, I would do this, 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 this. I would, assuming these 4 people are my people and I'm one of them, and then I would do this and we would do it like this and we would start at this time and I would need these things and we would get it done. And so we ran the evolution with the 4 of us. And not only did we run it with 4 people, so it wasn't even a labor thing. It was more of a radiation exposure thing, right? So fewer people in a radiation field, right? They're exposed to less people are exposed, and therefore the overall exposure footprint of the unit is better, right? Fewer people were exposed. So we did the job with 4 people instead of 6. That's a win. We did the job in about half the time. That's a win. And the team, actually, I changed up roles a little bit just based on personalities and preferences. And we actually had a pretty good time doing the evolution. We did it very successfully in a very quick way. Now, that's not to say that I was necessarily better than that senior operator, but that senior operator had one way of doing things. I had a different way of doing things. But because of our pecking order, I was never given the opportunity previously to voice, hey, can we do it this way? Nah, shush. We do it this way. This is the way we do it. This is the way I know how to do it. This is the way that it's always worked for me. So this is the way I'm going to do it. So that operations manager asked a really good question of me, which was, can we do it with 4? Should we do it with 4? How would we do it with 4? Those are good questions,
How
because maybe the answer is no, we shouldn't.
how can leaders resist the that urge of just coming in and bossing people around and telling people what to do, and instead try to ask questions and stay curious?
Yeah, again, I lean on emotional intelligence big time. Recognizing when you are being influenced by external factors. Okay, the run in, storm in the room, tell everybody what to do and how to do it typically has nothing to do with the people in that room. It typically has to do with external pressures. Like, we're already late, we got to hurry up, we got to get this done. It's got to be done before Thursday because on Friday we're getting this big shipment or whatever, right? Make up your own scenario. And so we jump right from stimulus to response. Right? Oh my gosh, we got to get this done. Okay, hey guys, we got to go get this done. So having the emotional intelligence and the awareness to say, let me not let those things influence my decisions, but let me use my same critical thinking skills to say, is this the right time to do this? And even if we've done this 1,000 times, is there value in me saying, should we do this? Can we do this? How would you do this? If you're not making, some top tier organizations, this is an internal initiative, which is on some periodicity, weekly or monthly or quarterly or something. They're all sitting down and saying, okay, what needs to be fixed? What isn't working? Is it policy? Is it alignment? What's not working in the organization? They're very proactive in that way. That is 100%. That is an output from their leader. Their leader gives them the time to do that, makes the time to do that, makes that a priority. That is 100% from your leadership, because that doesn't produce widgets, right? That doesn't necessarily initially put product out the door. So you're investing in these kind of collateral duties that are investing in the organization. Organizations that don't do that aren't there yet, at least need to have that conversation before the start of a workday, before the start of an evolution.
Let's give leaders a break here for a second, Charles. What happens if someone does indeed ask or start asking the right questions to their team, but people don't seem to step up? What happens then?
Yeah. Oh, you should expect that. If you've never done this before, right? It's like, the first time you ask a horse to jump over an obstacle. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, what? You want to do what? They have the capacity to do it, but they're just like really nervous. Are you sure you want me to do this? I don't know if I can do this. It's the same when if you decide today, okay, that's it. I'm not running my organization this way anymore. I'm going to start asking better questions. I'm going to involve the team. Be patient. It's going to take a while. You are going to have to build trust with them. And you can't do that by walking in the room and saying, trust me. That is not the way to build trust. The way to build trust is to do it and be consistent and walk the talk and do it yourself. Answer your own, continue to ask the questions. Write that down on the top of every page of your journal or of your notebook. Ask the question, ask the question, ask the question. And then over time, it becomes a habit and it becomes culture. And you yourself need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared for all sorts of answers as well, because you might ask the question and get really, really bad answers. So you as a leader have to be able to respond to those in a way that doesn't shut the entire organization down, right? All right, guys, what are we missing? Well, it's getting kind of close to lunch and maybe we shouldn't start. What? No, don't. Hey, man, don't talk to me about lunch. Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, you messed it up, right? So it doesn't mean that the organization is now running the organization and you have to take every one of their suggestions and you have to do everything they say because you asked. Well, now you're turning over your authority to them. Absolutely not. But if you remember and if you understand the purpose of my asking the questions is what? Right? It's to engage my organization. It's to build trust with them. It's to show them that they have a voice in this, and it's to make them feel valued and seen. If that's your motivation, then no matter what they say, you'll find value in it. And okay, thank you for bringing that up. You're right that it is close to lunch. Manager, what is the plan for lunch? Are we going to skip it? Are we just going to push it? Or should we have lunch early and then do this after lunch, right? You can ask follow-up questions to validate, but the last thing you want to do is dismiss someone who is trying to contribute.
I assure you, Charles, that there's probably someone thinking, well, if I start asking questions, that's just going to make me look weak in front of my team. And I think you're going to tie it back to emotional intelligence, which would make sense. But I guarantee you, and I've seen this myself in some of the teams that I've worked at, where managers just don't like asking questions because that's not what managers do. But then again, that turns someone into a manager and not a leader, right? But even
Right. Right.
even people, it's like there's this attachment to just weakness when someone in an authority position opens the floor to their team to just speak up. Like that's
Yeah.
seen as a
Yeah.
sign of weakness.
Yeah. Um, Maybe we should break down a video or two in this area because I know there's a lot of great examples out there of really great leaders in really powerful positions who make themselves more powerful and more trustworthy by admitting when they don't know and by asking questions. Okay. So again, the leader's job is not the technical nuts and bolts of how we're going to do this. Do you have knowledge of your own industry? Yes. Do you have experience? Yes. But that's not my position right now. I'm not on the pitcher's mound. I am not the quarterback right now. I'm the coach on the sideline. Did I play? Yes. Did I write the playbook? Yes. Do I know how they're supposed to write it? Yes. Am I out there getting hit in the face? No. Okay. So you're absolutely right that the only reason you would be triggered or fearful of asking questions is your own ego and your own attachment to some kind of status or authority. And if your status and your authority is so fragile that you can't even talk to your own team and solicit their input, then you have much bigger problems. And I would strongly suggest that you find a good coach and start talking through that, because you are limiting not only your potential as a leader, but your entire organizations, because you're stifling everyone's growth, not only your own. But there could be several contributors to that. But it's as you described it, it's this attachment to status and ego.
If there is a leader watching this at home right now and they want to start becoming a more question driven leader starting tomorrow, what is one thing that you can start doing?
Yeah, it's obvious. Start asking questions. And but here's the thing. Don't Don't put yourself on such a high expectation that you freeze up. Start small, be curious. It's one of the best things you can do or be in this world is be curious. And that's not because curious is a value of mine. It's because curiosity draws our attention. It draws our focus. And anything that draws our attention and focus leads to flow. And flow is peak performance. So follow your curiosity. Ask the extra question. When you think you're all done, force yourself to ask one more question, even if it's fairly benign or small. Don't think you have to walk in the room and completely blow everyone's mind with some perfect question that nobody's ever thought of in the history of mankind. That is way too much pressure. Just ask legitimate, obvious questions that nobody else is talking about, right? Hey, have we thought about, this, it sounds like this is going to be a pretty long evolution, 4 hours, 5 hours. Have we talked about taking breaks? Oh, we can't take breaks once we start this. Okay, well, is there an extra body who could, walk around and let people run to the restroom real quick and kind of take over their station? Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, well, you guys sort it out. I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to do it, but let's think about people. Let's think about people's, right? So just asking the extra question that nobody else is asking. It doesn't have to be, again, this super profound question. Start with small, safe stuff. Build up your own confidence. Build up trust in the team that you asking questions because you legitimately and genuinely want success for the team and you want their safety and their development. And just start small.
What about asking yourself questions?
Mm.
Is that something that leaders should be doing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where it all starts. And truthfully, I don't know if any of us need practice at that. I think we question ourselves quite a bit as it is. The difference is don't let it be negative self-talk. Don't let it be doubt. Don't let it be attachment. Ask yourself, what am I missing? What am I forgetting? And if you can't, you're going to come up with a couple of answers. 3, 4, 5 is usually pretty easy. 20 answers is really hard. So if there's something that you really, really need to dig into, a recurring problem, especially these little $1,000 a day problems that are tolerable until you get to the end of the year and realize it was $365,000 worth of little problems that kind of added up. Take the time to really reflect on those and force yourself to come up with 20 possible answers. It's almost impossible to do that. But I'm pretty sure it was Brian Tracy who's really successful at doing this 20 answer question problem. It's, like I said, like the first 4 or 5 are pretty easy. The next 10 are nearly impossible. The last 5, oh my gosh, you're coming up with really, really crazy, outlandish answers just to fill in those 20. But a funny thing happens is somewhere in there, your subconscious gets involved and it might spit out a weird answer like green M&Ms. And you're like, what did that have to do with anything? And there might be a connection there that makes you think just ever so slightly differently about the problem. But then, there's this decision-making curve, which we don't have the benefit of having the visual right now. But when you are really hyper-focused on something, but you don't have a lot of experience in that area, you're kind of in uncharted territory. That is knowledge-based thinking. There isn't an answer. You have a body of knowledge, you have a body of experience, and you have a new problem that you've never faced before. The problem when we're in that space is we are very heavily biased by our own experience and our own current knowledge. So all the answers we're going to come up with for that problem are going to look really similar to successes and solutions that we had in the past and different problems. The number one tool to combat that bias in that space is collaboration. Ask team members, get other perspectives. Because if you combine your knowledge base with their knowledge base and their experience, now all of a sudden you have a much larger body of knowledge to draw from, and you can come up with some pretty creative solutions.
So to wrap it up, Charles, I think that we've spoken a lot about asking questions, asking the right questions, putting yourself out there, opening up the floor for your workers and for your team to to be able to put themselves out there as well. I think that today's theme was essentially a lot about ego. And so I want to wrap up today's conversation just asking you, when does a leader credit their team for successes? And when
Mm.
does the leader actually take credit for the success of the team? Because I know that you've mentioned this a couple times throughout past episodes. If a team doesn't succeed at the overall job, you almost always blame management, right? You blame the people at
I
the
always
at
blame
the top.
leadership.
Yeah, you
Yep.
blame leadership. Do you also credit leadership when things go well?
Yeah, but differently. Um, the short glib answer is leadership never takes credit, right? Because that's our job. That's kind of the expectation. If everybody's successful and everybody's happy and everybody's safe, then you did your job, right? So, all right, but that's kind of the sarcastic answer. I always so this is not only leadership, this is parenting. This is how I parent my children. I was so worried about raising little assholes, right? I definitely did not want to do that. And I also had really well-intentioned parents who did some things that didn't necessarily set me up for success. And this is kind of speaking to growth versus fixed mindsets and stuff like that. So I was very aware when I became a parent, and this is germane to leadership as well, right? I became very aware when I became a parent that I didn't want my kids to be so anxious about outcomes and grades and stuff like that. Now, there's a body of the population who thinks, oh, that's weak. You should be focused. You're a very competitive person. Congratulations. Good for you. Society needs you. Continue to be competitive. However, the data and the study shows that when all you do is focus on outcomes, you have a very fixed mindset. You have a very fragile ego. If you are not number one, if you're not first, you're last in a fixed mindset. If you're not first, well, then what was the point? Okay. Okay. There's something to be said for winning. We love that in our society. Absolutely. But more importantly is, what did you do to prepare for and to achieve the outcome that you did get? So as a parent, I very, very heavily focused on rewarding and pointing out my children's effort, not necessarily the outcome. Hey, look, I got an A plus. Did you study? No. Well, then I don't think you should get as much credit as you think you should get, right? You're naturally good at that. Good for you. But don't pat yourself on the back too hard. You didn't study for it. You didn't prepare for it, right?
Interesting.
I reward effort. I studied my ass off. I read all 3 chapters twice and I got a B plus. Good for you. Imagine what would have happened if you hadn't done that work, right? This applies to my leadership as well. Now, crappy results are crappy results. Something needs to be fixed because we need to get good results in business. Absolutely. I'm not saying, again, it's not all rainbows and unicorns.
Do,
But
uh,
when, go ahead.
does that mean that you will probably reward a little bit more that employee who is just not as talented? So you've got employee A, employee B. Employee A is just exceptional at their job because they're naturally talented at it. Employee B is not as talented as employee A, but they put in 120% each week into their job, whereas employee A, the natural talented one, does enough to get by and get the results done, but that gets him the work done because he's naturally talented. You would reward employee B more than you would reward employee A.
No, no, actually, they're both horribly misaligned.
Okay.
You shouldn't have to put in 120% effort to get mediocre results. You're in way over your head. You need to be reassigned. You shouldn't be able to come in and coast and get exceptional results. You're not being challenged. You're not growing. So that's a leadership problem,
Well,
what you just
let's assume
described.
that they're not getting mediocre results, that they're actually delivering good results.
Meeting the minimum. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, yes. So this is the capacity versus willingness. Okay. You're busting your butt. You're so willing. You just come into work every day with a great attitude. You're trying really hard. You're working your ass off. You just don't have the capacity for this kind of work. You're just not seeing the bigger picture. there's probably a better place for you where instead of having to work so hard just to meet the minimum standard, there's there's probably still a misalignment there. There's a capacity issue there. And the same on the other end. You're coming in, you're coasting. I'm going to lose that employee. The one who could just come in and do the work naturally and gets perfect results every time. I'm going to lose that employee because they're bored. And so I need to be able to recognize that as well. But with respect to rewarding, I always reward the effort over the results. So, yes, the person who's really busting their ass hard to meet that minimum standard, I'm going to acknowledge. So, there's a difference. Reward versus acknowledge. I am going to definitely acknowledge that person's effort. Man, I see that you're working so hard. Is there anything that I can do to make this easier for you? It seems like you're really struggling on a weekly basis to do this job. What is it that's so challenging for you? Right?
Yeah,
Well, I didn't tell you,
that
but
makes perfect sense.
this is actually a prosthetic leg. Wait, what? Right?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring it up, but this, up and down those stairs is really hard for me because this is a prosthetic. What the fuck? No, like, right? And then the person on the other end, like, hey, man, you're doing great, but we need to talk about what's next for you because I can tell that you're half asleep and you're killing this. Let's find something else for you. What other interests do you have? Where else could you be of value? Because again, if you're not curious about something, you're not focused on it, you're not in flow, that's not the best version of you.
That makes perfect sense. I think you broke it down pretty well. Yeah, it's been interesting. I think hopefully people watching this or listening to this episode can really walk away from it, with the motivation to start asking questions. Um, yeah, appreciate your time, Charles.
Always a pleasure, man. This was fun.
I'll talk to you next week.